before we kind of dive into what you see with this upcoming season, can you just, as a refresher, explain what the SP Plus system is and what you're doing with the numbers that people see so often?
Yeah, I mean, in season, it's tempo adjusted, opponent adjusted, just kind of a look at the sustainable aspects of college football. That's the elevator pitch, so to speak. And for the preseason projections, the weights change every year, but it's basically based on recent history and recruiting success, or more recently transfer recruiting success. And returning production. So, like I said, the weights of all those things changes over time, but that's still kind of the core concepts there.
What has stood out with what you've seen with Tennessee, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your numbers have had Tennessee a little bit higher than where the polls have. Last I saw was right inside the top 15, I think at number 13 for Tennessee. But what stands out about what you saw with Tennessee? And obviously there was a quarterback change with Nico leaving, Joey Aguilar coming in. So how did that affect things with what SP Plus sees with Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, SP Plus saw a really, really good defensive team last year that was only pretty good offensively. And so, when in that kind of situation, when you lose your quarterback, it might not hurt you as much. And that's kind of, I think in this week's final projections, they're going to end up either 12th or 13th. We'll see. But it's going to be basically with a top 5 defense and a top 40 offense. So, the components. The big name nature of obviously losing a 5-star guy you paid a lot of money for, that matters, but he wasn't the reason Tennessee was as good as they were last year, so they're not projected to fall as much.
You've been really high on Josh Hypel when you compare him to some of the other coaches who have won championships. And when you look at what he brings to the table, what he's done, taking over a roster that was so depleted. Why do you have Josh Hypel kind of higher than other rankings of coaches out there?
Yeah, I mean, before Hypel arrived, what was it? 3 losing seasons, then 4. Only a couple times in like 20 years winning more than 8 games. And then he comes in, goes 7-6 the first year, and then wins 11, 9, and 10. Like that's pretty impressive. 3 straight years in the top 15 in SP Plus. And as the offensive rating has sunk each year, they were first in 2022. It feels like maybe opponents have at least adapted a little bit and made sure they don't get away with as much from a tempo perspective or especially a big play perspective. Mm-hmm. The defense has gotten better every year to kind of account for that, and they're playing more complementary ball than maybe they did a couple of years ago. So as a program, it has just been they have figured out ways to win, and as the SEC has adapted, they've adapted to the SEC, and that's all worked really well. This is obviously, with the amount of change going on and some kind of injury uncertainty and whatnot on defense, we'll see if they can live up to that top 15 projection. But 3 straight years in the top 15 probably means you're projected to do it again after that.
We're talking to Bill Connelly, who writes about college football at ESPN.com and provides the SP Plus rankings. As you imagine, we spent the last 8 months roughly talking about the opponents for this upcoming season for Tennessee, going through the schedule. One that's very interesting is Oklahoma. Last year didn't go great, but they brought in John Mateer, brought in his OC, revamped some other positions. They also have a tough schedule. What stands out about OU when you look at the Sooners this year?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the modern way of going about your business. You slowly built a good defense, your offense collapses, you import a new one, and you try again. And, sometimes that works beautifully, so we can't really discount it. But John Mateer, Ben Arbuckle, the new offensive coordinator, we know they work well together. We'll see if they have enough receivers. They brought in a ton of receivers, but, I mean, none of them are slam dunks. The best guys were in FCS, and sometimes those translate and sometimes they don't. And the offensive line was horrible last year and needs a couple transfers to stick there too. So it's not a given that they're going to improve a ton, but they were in a lot of games last year against maybe the hardest schedule in the country. They have maybe the hardest schedule in the country again this year, and Tennessee kind of catches them right in the middle of a pretty ridiculous stretch. So yeah, I mean, they could be, if they start fast, and I think they will, they could be playing for some decent stakes when they head to Tennessee in early November. But there's a lot of losable games on that schedule still.
Is there a team that has jumped the most from SP Plus last year to this year going into the season you think will be a team to watch?
Yeah, I mean, there are some predictable teams that are going to be projected. Florida State obviously is going to be projected to improve a ton. That doesn't mean they'll be good, but when you collapse that much with your recent history and your recruiting and all that is good, you're going to be projected to rebound pretty well. Michigan's another. Oklahoma is projected to rise to about a top 15 kind of level. But outside of that, it's Clemson, because of returning production, moves up a decent amount, although not nearly as far as the polls have them. That's going to be kind of an interesting test case. I'm curious about that one with LSU. But otherwise, it's a lot either teams that return a ton of production from last year or just teams that were surprisingly bad last year and will probably rebound.
Bill Connelly, ESPN.com with us. How deep do you think the national championship conversation is at the start of the year, where you can make a case for this team, that team, to be playing for it at the end of the season?
Well, I think I feel more comfortable in about the top 7 than I do anything else. So, whatever your order is going to be, it's, Ohio State and Penn State from the Big Ten, and probably Oregon and kind of on the border there. Alabama, Georgia, Texas from the SEC, Notre Dame's in that mix as well. I kind of feel like I'm more confident in those teams than anybody else. But what's really interesting, especially with the SEC this year, so many teams in and outside of that range are breaking in really exciting new quarterbacks who are either new or young, and they all run around. They all take a lot of hits. A couple of them are going to be spectacular this year. A couple of them are going to be hurt half the year. But if there's a hit among, Lagway at Florida, or Mateer, or Sellers at South Carolina, or even Marcel Reed at Texas A&M, they don't have just a ton of holes otherwise. And if they get really, really, really strong quarterback play, or even Tennessee, that's going to make them a definite playoff contender and at least a contender to win a couple games in the playoffs. So, yeah, I mean, I think there is a separation after the top 7, but you can go 15, 16, 17 deep if the quarterback hits just right. They could do some damage in a playoff.
Hey, Bill, I know in the SEC preview you had Georgia-Tennessee as one of the intriguing early season games. What stands out to you about that game? Why does that game matter so much? It's the SEC opener for each side.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably part of the reason it's the SEC opener, but it really is going to be, Tennessee, we'll see about Syracuse, obviously. The numbers, they lost so much from last season. The numbers aren't really confident in the orange, but they weren't last year either, and they, surprised. So maybe they can do it again, but it is going to be, on paper at least, the first huge test for Tennessee. It's at home. Georgia's such an interesting team to me this year because they're gonna, because of that recruiting, because of the depth they always have, they're gonna have just about the highest floor in the country. I don't know what they're supposed to be elite at though. Maybe the defensive front comes back around last year. It was kind of banged up last year, but the quarterback's kind of a toss up right now. The skill core is a mystery and didn't do nearly enough last year. The offensive line wasn't good enough last year, so it is going to be just interesting to see what Georgia brings to the table. Tennessee will have to be good to beat them. You always do with Georgia, but I'm really not sure exactly how elite I expect Georgia to be this year.
Bill, which fan base in college football has been most active in your mentions this offseason?
This year, probably Clemson. They are going to end up in that kind of 8 to 10 range, which is, again, major improvement over the 15 to 20 range they've been in for 4 straight years. But because we don't really do bowl bumps anymore. There used to be that thing where if you look great in your bowl, suddenly you're like preseason number 8 or something, and the consensus grows off of basically one game. We don't do that, but with Clemson, they really haven't been elite in a long time. But the fact that they only lost by 14 to Texas and brought back their quarterback seemed to be enough to give them top 5 hype, and they kind of soared right past where the SP Plus projections have them. So that's been one. I think they're the ACC favorite. I've been saying that all off season, but I do not see. I think they have to show me that they actually have top 5, potential, a top 5 ceiling, because they haven't in a while. And me saying that for the last 8 months hasn't really impressed Clemson fans all that much.
I'm sure. We appreciate your work, so we recommend everyone check out the SP Plus rankings and just what Bill writes at ESPN.com. And before you go, I think it's coming out in a few weeks, but tell us about Forward Progress, the definitive guide to the future of college football. You have a book coming out.
Yeah, September 2nd. Pre-order on Amazon. That's apparently the way you sell books in 2025, so I encourage everybody to go do that. And, it's basically kind of half history book, half manifesto. How did we get here? Where are we going? Where should we go? I just, there are so many changes going on with college football right now that I felt it was going to be pretty worthwhile to kind of walk through each one individually and talk about like what's good, what's bad, what's kind of a danger moving forward. And I like it a lot. All I know I can control is that I write something that I enjoy, and I definitely enjoyed this one.
Do you have a favorite part of what you either discovered or came up with looking into the future of college football?
Well, I do think it was pretty fun, or pretty interesting, kind of looking through the danger signs that you can learn from other sports that kind of fell from grace a little bit. So that was kind of interesting. But really, I had fun like looking into the Australian rules football and the kind of the parity and the way they've gone about that. And I write a lot about soccer. There's a lot of parallels with European soccer, kind of looking through what matters and what doesn't. And, their failed Super League, why it failed, because, in other countries, they actually protest things, and we don't protest anything here other than Vols fans, with Greg Schiano, I guess. But, it is really interesting how other sports go about how other continents and their fans react to things and how we just kind of go with everything.
That's interesting. I'm looking forward to checking that out. If you're ever looking for a college football exception, Bill, you might find one in Knoxville from time to time. Hey,
that was one example I had to give. Yeah,
there you go. So go pre-order the title of the book, Forward Progress: The Definitive Guide to the Future of College Football, coming out September 2nd. It's by Bill Connelly. Hey, Bill, thank you for the time as always. We appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely. Take care.